I'm happy that we have such a distinguished guest today to open our alumni chat series. Joining us from Waldorf, Maryland, Dr. Joy Brown is a career coach, HR director, and CEO of a career and coaching practice and a School of Public Health alumna. Go Terps! I'll omit any long introductions. We are all ears and eager to learn from you. But I'll just ask you one simple question to get us started. What are the most frequent questions you receive at your career coaching sessions? And obviously, what are answers to those?
Okay, well, great. Well, I'm excited to be with you all. And so, welcome to our career chat with Dr. Joy Brown. And so, in terms of what questions do my clients come to me, it is mostly around their career professional development. I'm in this job, I want to advance in my career. I'm interested in changing jobs. I'm still trying to find my skills. I'm still trying to identify my skills. And in those sessions, we provide, career coaching services that I do, but I also go through a process of that exploratory. And to me, it starts with what we're calling today in our career chat is time to explore and execute regarding career planning. And so a lot of times I'm coaching clients on their professional development. I'm in this job, I have these skills, but I know that there's something more that I want to do. Or I really don't know what I want to do yet, but I went to school for this major and I'm really not even doing anything close to my major. And I'm really trying to just still figure that out. And those clients I really love because we have time to explore and execute a plan, focus on career coaching as well as career planning. So today during our career chat, I want to go over a couple of slides that I think will address some of the questions. And you all gave me some great questions that I also want to talk about. So this is an interactive session. So again, if you have questions, put them in the chat, raise your hand. But again, I am an alum of the University of College Park. I majored in family studies. So I knew then that I wanted to do something with people, about helping people. And in this journey, I started, as an HR intern, and I landed my dream job as HR director. But it was at Maryland that I started my quest on careers, and I worked for the Office of Personnel Management. And I remember talking to my classmates about jobs in the federal government because that's what I was doing. And over 26 years, I'm still doing what I started when I was an intern and when I was on the campus of College Park, talking about the great opportunities that the federal government can offer. And so I am a success story. And so I do talks and webinars, and I serve as a coach and I serve as a mentor to many about how to navigate the hiring process within the government or without, as well as tapping into the gifts and talents that are in you and how to manifest that and align that to your job. And so that is what my calling is in life. And so we're going to get started again with our career chat, and a couple of things I want us to talk about is the importance and benefits of career planning. Give you some foundations of the elements of career planning and some strategies. I'm all about giving people strategies. So when I say career planning, put in the chat what comes to mind when I say career planning. And so even though I'm going to read you the definition, again, career planning is about taking time to decide your career goals and how to get there. It is a process, I'll say, of a discovery of your education and training and your professional opportunities that suit you based upon your interests and passion and goals. Again, to me, it's a strategy of taking you from where you are today to where you want to go into the future. So to me, it's your roadmap, it's your plan. And so again, put in the chat, when I say career planning, what words come to mind when I talk about career planning? Okay, passion, thank you, growth, strengths. Yes, that is a part of the career planning. And so there are some benefits. One, it can give you a clear picture of who you are. I am big, and my clients know I am big on knowing thyself through assessments, through understanding who you are, because you are the best person to know about who you. And I do believe that everybody has a brand. So just as, we know what the three arches, we know what know Nike, we know what Chick-fil-A, all of those organizations, Apple, Samsung, all of those have brand. But I do believe everybody has a brand. And tapping into your brand and being able to manifest that and able to align that with your career, with your professional goals and aspiration is how you have a successful life and walk into your purpose. And when you can say you've landed your dream job, so every day is not a day of work because you're walking and living in your passion. Career planning, again, lets you explore, again, your talents, your interests and skills. Isn't it nice to wake up every day and do what you love and get paid to do it? That's how I was able to birth businesses off of things that I do extremely well. Hello. So again, when you talk about interest, you talk about skills, you talk about talents. Again, it also lets you focus on what do you want to do and where do you want to go? Because I do believe in life, you have to have a roadmap, almost like a GPS. You know, when you put in the direction and an address, it gives you the directions. And then you sometimes may take the wrong way. It what? Reroutes. So I do believe career planning serves as that guide, that roadmap to help you navigate your professional life and career. And so on this process, before we start talking about some questions, because I definitely want you to be able to ask me some questions and I'm going to be able to tackle some of your questions. The process to me starts with one, assessing your skills and interests. So one of the questions that was asked about, what about assessments? How do you know what you're good at? What should you do? Are there some assessments? And so I'm going to answer that question now because yes, there are definitely some assessments that are free or even some that you have to pay. And I say one of my best friends is that good thing called Google or YouTube that's on the internet. That is a wealth of information in this technological era that you can search for free career assessments. If you are still alumni, still connected to the Career Center and the Alumni Association, I'm quite sure there's some tools and some strategies where you can take some assessments to understanding who you are. And I think that's the goal, to understanding who you are, what skills you have, and understanding what jobs align to your skill sets. And that's how you can starting your career path by starting, again, understanding your skills and your interests. Then the other thing I think is important, you got to do your research. You have to know what you want to do. So one question is, if you're in a position or you just got your degree and you're trying to figure out what to do next, I'm going to ask you, well, what have you done today? Have you done your research? Have you done your homework? You know, what industries are you interested in? Have you researched? Have you talked to somebody that's doing this? Have you asked them, how did you get to where you are? One of the things I've done, and it's been a part of my pillars of success, is having informational interviews, which is just like interviewing for a job, but I wasn't interviewing for a job at the time. I was interviewing or get to know people who were doing things that I wanted to do or I thought I wanted to do. So I said, can I interview? Can I pick your brain? Can I ask you questions about how did you get there? What career advice would you have for me? Is it any classes or certifications that I need to take? What were some of the challenges? How do you balance it all? You know, those have been instrumental in my life, and I still do it on my business. Because again, if I want to be successful and I see people who are successful, I want to know, what is the roadmap? What can I put in place today to figure out how I can get to where they are today? This is part of my plan. So you got to do your research. The other thing is you got to target your career pick, which to me starts with what you're interested in. What are you interested in? And whatever that is, I want you to be the best at it. So that's the other thing, is whatever your interest, your goal is, you should be the best at it. You should be the subject matter expert. You should be the one that people will go to when they have a problem or they need a solution. And again, I learned that even in my grad school. If you can always be the problem solver, people always go to you for your expertise. But you got to understand, you got to know who you are. You got to understand your skill sets. You got to do your research, and you got to understand it to make yourself that marketable and providing that credibility. The other thing is developing a plan. You have to have a plan of what you want to do. It's come with that goal. An individual development plan is important. It's that roadmap. It's where I am today. What do I want to do? How do I get there? And you can use that not only for your professional, but also for life. Again, the other part of our career planning process is create your brand and star stories. I've said it before. I think everybody has a brand, and aligning yourself with a coach or mentor can help you tap into what your brand is. And your brand is you, is who you are and what makes you you, because I do believe everybody is unique and has gifts and talents. And once you're able to tap into those gifts and talents, it will open doors for you. But you got to know who you are, what you bring, and have those transferable skills. Because as an employer, I'm looking at those transferable skills. Clients are coming to me because they say, I'm doing this, I don't know what skills I have. And so I'm working on elevating their brand and bringing out those transferable skills. And then we're aligning them with jobs and careers and maybe programs that align to their interests, which ties into the next thing, looking for those opportunities. You have to look for those opportunities. And there's a wealth of things that you can look for opportunities, such as this alumni association, staying tapped into that and doing the resources that the alumni will offer. Again, going back to school, getting a certification, doing informational interviews, having a mentor, having a coach, being active in associations. Again, you're joining these groups in order to network. Networking is key. A lot of opportunities that I have got in my life is about people who sought me out and they saw what I was doing, and then another door opened. And so again, but you have to look for those opportunities. The other thing is you need to do your core duties well, whatever it is. Again, be the best at it. And how do you be the best at it? By putting in the work in yourself, by making sure that you're abreast of what's going on in your industry. How do you do that? By, again, doing your research, figuring out what do you do in order to improve your skills, almost like in school. You know, in order to pass the class, we got to do the homework. We got to be involved. We got to be engaged. We got to participate. We got to do all of our assignments. So it's the same thing in life, especially with you in your career. And the other thing is your career management, which is your total package, which is your plan, your strategy, coming up with your goals, having your mentor, having your coach, and being able to, again, making sure that you're moving in the right direction. So are there any immediate questions before I start tackling some of these questions that we received ahead of time? But I definitely wanted to take this opportunity to hear from you all about what questions do you have, just about anything about your career path, the career planning process.
I have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned pillars of success. What are those?
Great question. So to me, your pillars of success, I call them, for me, is those things that along my leadership journey that have been instrumental. And so for me, one starts with how I got started. It was participating in an internship. I'm very passionate about internships. I'm very passionate about creating a pipeline program. Again, I mentioned I landed my dream job. I have literally grown up in HR. When I graduated from Maryland in family studies, remember I said I want to do something with people. I knew I had a gift of helping people, you know, creating plans, getting people from point A to point B. That's always been my gift. And so I didn't do the family studies because I thought I wanted to be a therapist, but I didn't deviate from that because I'm a coach and I'm a mentor and I am an author. And so I'm still about helping people, just in a different way. And so when I got my master's, remember I was already at Maryland working as an intern. And when I graduated, I got, you know, was on the career projection to be a human resource specialist. So I was already in the field of HR, but I got my master's in human resource development. And so still about people, still about organizations, and the stuff that I was doing at Maryland and the programs and the classes all helped me again when I got my master's. And so participating in internships, doing informational interviews, having a mentor, having a coach, seeking out opportunities. You know, I remember as an intern, I'm still like that today. I am a thirst for knowledge. I'm always about figuring out how I can be a value added. So everywhere I go, I want to make a difference. That's one of my keys to success. It will be different because Dr. Joy Brown has come through. Somebody's life will be changed. I will have impacted, I will have encouraged, I will have inspired, I will have created something, I will have provided a resource to somebody to help them out. So that's how I add value. So when you talk about pillars of success, those are pillars that I still do. Every organization that I've been in a leadership development program. Because again, as you progress in your career, And yes, you have your academia and you have your coursework, but when you get on the job, it's about application. And so it's about how do you translate what you've learned in the classroom to applicable in the work setting. And so even I'm an adjunct professor at my alma mater. I teach my students what you learn in the classroom. I need you to be able to apply that to life. So the assessments and the lessons and the projects that you do, those could be great value added to you, even your resume, as you're still trying to figure out what you want to do. So those have been my pillars of success.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And I have one more follow-up question about this schematic that is on the screen. How do you start becoming the source of the solution? I like this expression, source of the solution, but you're not just going around and offering people some help. What does it mean to be truly, becoming source of the solution?
No, that's a great one. I think the source of solution again starts with, again, the knowledge, whatever area that you're in, being knowledgeable of that area. And how you become knowledgeable is, again, by researching, staying abreast of it. If you have to take a class, if you have to read up on current policies and procedure, because stuff changes. But I think that's how you can also be the source of, the solution. And seeing, again, where it can add value. And I think for me, when I tell my students, because again, HR, they think HR is about, paper pushing or stuff like that. I said, no, HR adds value. Because in every organization, no matter if it's federal, if it's state, if it's in any organization, anything, they have an HR department. Why? Because HR is about people. Somebody's got to hire the people, bring the people on board. When you get on board, you got to go through some type of orientation. You got to go through training. Do you want your benefits? Do you want to get paid on time? You have questions about this. Is there training and development? All of that's tied to HR. It is the foundation of everything. It's the glue that gets the mission done. Without the people, the mission doesn't get done. That's the value that, to me, the human resource development and the human resources has to an organization. But again, and how I look at it, it's becoming your strategic partner. So again, when you talk about how do you add that value, how do you become that SME, it's understanding your role and how you can add value, how you can create, a new process, a new program. But again, that starts again with many of the stuff that you learned in school. I literally, when I worked on my master's, everything I did in my master's program has helped me right now, even in my career. And so even when I took the consulting class, I consult every day. I'm big on consulting. I'm big on finding out the solution. That's an analytical skills. Understanding you have this issue, what's underlying, what are you trying to get to, and coming up with strategies in order to get to the end results. Great question. Other questions?
We have one from Sandy.
Okay, great.
And here it is in the chat. How often should we look for new roles or opportunities to advance the career?
That's a great question. I think that's going to be up to you. One, I want to say, but what is your end goal? And that's where that action planning, that strategy, what are you trying to achieve? And you have to determine, what do you want to do? If you say you want to, get a doctorate degree, or you want to, in this profession, but you have to understanding your end goal, and then you create strategy in order to get there. One of the questions that came up is how often, again, the millennial generation or the younger generation, we understand, because again, we have multiple generations in the workplace, and I'm one of those millennial Gen X's supervisors, because like I said, I have literally grown up in the federal government. And so I was a supervisor before I was 30. I was supervising people who did not look like me, who were much older than me. But one of the things, understanding those dynamics, I think positioned me for what I'm doing now. So even on my interviews, when they talk about changing roles, and that was one of the questions, every position that I've had in my life has prepared me for the next one. So how often should you change? I say never leave until you have another job. Point one, because you always need to have something lined up. The other thing is you have to understand, when you go into an organization, think about, what can I learn? How can I grow and develop that may help advance my career? But you have to understand what your end goal and where you're trying to go to. But every position that I've had has prepared me. When I was an intern, then I was, when I graduated, I was the HR specialist. I did that. And then I became a team lead. And then as the team lead, I became a supervisor. Now I'm a director. So when I say every position prepared me for what I'm doing now. And so I would offer that as how often should you change and stuff like that. And then sometimes, even in this, every environment is so important because my bubbliness can't take other environments. So one of the questions I do with my clients, because I told you I'm big on assessment and I'm big on understanding you. And so I tell people when I hire a whole person. And what that means is that I hire all of you because again, we people and I'm big on people. People come to work with all different personalities, all different backgrounds, and that's the diversity of people. But I understand that because I'm a people person. I'm centered on people. And so I say all of that is you bring your whole self. So I ask my clients, what is your ideal work environment? If money was no option, what is a deal breaker for you? What do you want to have in this environment? And why I ask that question is because as you are interviewing and exploring, I do believe interviews are two-way streets. As somebody is interviewing me, I'm interviewing them because I need to make sure that my values and what's important to me at work will manifest in this organization. I need to be in an organization where, there's team synergy, there's collaboration, there's engagement. I want to know when I have an idea. It's not going to be, like, no, we don't want to hear from you. We just do as we say. That's not going to work for me. So if I know that, that may not be a good fit for me because that's not going to help me be my best self. And so understanding your skills and what environment that you would thrive in is important as you progress in your career. And so I offer that to my clients because I'm working with them. I go back to that question. After we do the resume, and I said, let's go back to what you said. If money was no option, what would you do? And what type of environment are you looking for? Well, I'm looking for an environment where I can be appreciated, I can be valued, I can offer suggestions, I can learn, I can have a mentorship. To me, those are important because when you interview on your interview, when they say, do you have questions for us? Yes, I do have questions. Learning and development is important to me. What learning and development do you offer your employees? So if I go to an organization, they say they don't offer any learning and development, I don't know if I'm going to apply to that because I'm about growth. I'm about development. I want to be able to enhance my skill set. I want to be able to add value because stuff changes. Great question. Other questions? Other questions?
I've got one from our career questions form, which
Okay.
reads, what are red flags of an organization that say it's time to leave? I know it's very specific. We're probably discussing, career development, not the career end, but I like this because it's very specific.
Okay, so which question was it? I didn't hear it. It didn't come through.
What are any red flags of an organization that indicate you need to leave?
Oh, that is a great question. Red flags. And so this is again an individual. So I think red flags again would be knowing, I would say a hostile or a toxic environment. I think for me, or where I'm in an organization where I'm being, I would say unseen or unheard. And what I mean by that is, when people maybe say, nope, you can't do that, but you have gifts and talents, like you do this. Like I facilitate workshops, I put on workshops, I create curriculum. I went to school to create curriculum. But if I was in an organization that knew my gifts and talents and then was like, nope, and even when I volunteered, I can still do my work and do this. And it was like, no, to me, that's a red flag because I can clearly see what's important to me. And again, your leadership, and you have conversation with management about, your goals, your aspiration, where you're trying to go, would love to be able to volunteer, would love to be able to, enhance your skills. But in an organization that's nope, they don't, trying to box you in, that would be a red flag for me. But again, it's all depending on the person. And again, what are your deal breakers? It's not just a deal breakers in relationship. I think it's a deal breaker in organizations. But it starts talking about what are you seeing? If you feel like, again, you have a supervisor that clearly is not supportive, everything's no, you have no time off, it all depends. But again, that starts with personal. What's important to you? What is your values? And it needs to be in alignment to you. I think those would be the red flags.
I like how you mentioned how to, kind of navigate toxic environment, because this is exactly one of the topics we have in our career chats in June. And that's from our trainers who teach this specific question. What is the toxic environment? How we identify one and how we navigate it. It's very interesting.
Oh, that's going to be interesting. No, that is, because like you said, it varies. And I think it varies depending on the person, and they're gonna be like, oh no, yeah. And for me, like I said, I've been in 3 organizations, but I have over 25 years in the government. And so this is my 3rd organization. But even at the longest one I've been in was 16 years, I moved around. So I moved around for other opportunities. I became a team leader, then I was a supervisor, then I went from the head of HR in the office of HR to a program office, which is different. So I moved around, which offers different perspectives. But I get to a point, and then I went on another assignment where I came back and I said, I have nothing, I've done everything. I've checked all my boxes, and I know there was something more that I wanted to do. And it was time for me to, again, take that leap. And so, but I guess as an individual, but that's a great topic.
Dr. J, let's talk about this next question, which came up in the chat. And I think it's very much universal, not as individual, because it talks about financial implications when you change jobs. How do you even start answering that question? If money wasn't, an issue, I want to do that, or that.
Oh, I think that's a great question. So one of the things is, in looking at, the pay for salaries and stuff like that, and figuring out, okay, I have this expertise. So how do I get paid for what I'm worth? Or how do I even negotiate? Again, I think it starts with, again, yourself and your expertise, and offering what are you bringing? Like, again, if we know that we're just coming out of school and, you have no previous, work experience, I don't know if you can demand you want to make $80,000. Why? Because you have not demonstrated your credibility, your expertise yet. But once you have identified, hey, I have done this, I have demonstrated this, and how do you demonstrate that? Because again, that's on your resume, and it's going to speak to all the great value, your accomplishments that you've done. And an organization will be able to say, hey, this person can bring this. So clearly they can walk in the door doing this. I think that's where you have time to negotiate, again, to saying that you're kind of going to get compensated for what you work. And we know that all organizations have a pay range, even the federal government, all our salaries are posted because we follow the OPM, that's federal wide. Private industry may be a little different. So that is the nuance. Well, government, no, we can't pay you what the private industry can, because we just can't. It's taxpayers. It's public service. We are public service. Government agencies, county government, it's public service. It's the mission. It's the calling. It's the public service. What private industry, if you're a contractor, you may do that. So it depends. But I would say you need to look at your whole entire compensation. Because again, I like when I take leave, I get my whole check. I can take a paid time off and I get my whole check. Where depending on some of your, your organizations or your industry, if you take off, you don't get your whole check. And so you have to look at that. And so during these times, I think you just have to look at what the market, has and stuff like that, as figuring out, what is the market worth, and then trying to make yourself as credible as possible. And then I know, like now, we do have people who are negotiating their salaries as best way, and organizations are offering different incentives. And so I don't know if Elizabeth, you want to come offline, because y'all can unmute yourself now, if you have more specific of how do you work through those financial challenges.
Oh,
Elizabeth, were you going to follow back up?
I think Elizabeth mentioned in the chat that also when you change careers, not specifically when you at the same organization. That might be as well,
Right.
that might have financial implications.
Well, yes, it is. Right. So if you were making $100,000 and then you're starting at $60,000, my first question is, why are we starting at $60,000? That's my first question.
Sorry, I had to
Off of that, right? If I was getting paid at $100,000 as a director, chief executive officer doing this, why would I then go down to $60,000? So I don't know that without, talking with her and advising, right? Because again, if you were at 100,000, you were paid $100,000 per your expertise and skill set. And that's probably at a director, supervisor, program manager level. And so to me, if that's your background, those would be the jobs. Even if you were doing a career change, it would be comparable to what you left. Yes, Nicholas, I see your hand. And hopefully Elizabeth can come back on.
Hello, thank you for being here. So I think my question might be a little bit long, but sounds like along the same lines as Elizabeth. So my background is in education.
Mhm.
I recently graduated from the Smith School with an MBA, did a complete career shift.
Mhm.
And so for me, kind of along those same lines as what it sounds like Elizabeth was asking is, so I'm doing a career shift. Granted, there are some transferable skills from one career to another. However, going from education to business are two completely different careers. And so I find myself in a situation where obviously had a very stable career in education, going to a new industry, feeling like transferable skills only get you so far because you don't have those tangible business quote unquote experiences. Um, and feeling like, yeah, I need to go from 100 to starting off to 60 just to get that tangible experience and have that on my resume so that way I can get back up to 100. It doesn't seem realistic, or I haven't found it to be realistic where I can just transition from one industry to another making the same amount of money or even more money in that new industry,
Right.
if
No,
that makes
definitely
sense.
understood. No, definitely understand. So yeah, it all depends on what industry that you're in. And then it all depends on, again, if you're totally switching industries, again, how you're qualifying for that new industry and tapping back into your transferable skills. Because here's the thing. If you know how to analyze, say in education, you were a program manager, you were analyzing, you were doing research, you were briefings, you were, doing evaluations, even though your industry is changing, it's the same skill. You just have to learn it at the other environment. So there is a learning curve, but it's again, working with somebody to maybe help you again, line up as close as possible, pulling out those transferable skills in the stuff that you do. Because on your resume, we're asking you questions of stuff that you've already done, that you've demonstrated what you can accomplish. I'm hiring you based upon what you've already done, because I don't know you. I have a sheet of paper, I have you as interviewing, and you are telling me I can do this because I've demonstrated my expertise, my value, because I've done this in this industry. So my transferable skills, even though it's a new industry, I should be able to translate them into this organization. There will always be a learning curve for me, even when I came to this agency, because I knew the HR at my old agency, but the foundation of HR is HR. The transferable skills that I'm still using, that I was using then, is the same skills I'm using over here. It's just I had to learn it their way. So I'm asking questions, well, what's your policy? What's your procedure? Let me get up to speed on it. And then it's all second nature. So again, working with somebody to maybe help you will that. And then sometimes if it's totally different and you don't have that, then yes, you may have to take a pay cut in trying to get back to a totally different industry. But then also think about, is there anything else that you can do to make yourself more marketable as you transition?
I'm sorry, I can't find the hand raise button that Nicholas used, but thank you for chiming in, Nicholas. I think that was an excellent example of exactly what I was trying to get at. Can I just ask, is it something that would be appropriate within that transition and within the pay cuts? And as you mentioned, a lot of positions have a range. So let's say it was like, hey, we have 60 to 70 for this thing of, I understand I'm completely starting scratch, starting with 60, and can it be part of the negotiation of after 6 months, I'm at 65, and after 12 months, it'd be 70 or something like that to try and alleviate and make that weighing decision of, this job I think it could bring a lot more joy to my life. However, I have a family, I have financial goals, all those extra things. Just curious if you can speak on how to make that decision and financially work it out.
No, I think that's great. I think that's one of the questions you have to ask that employer. And I think you have to be very, just like you said, because you have to ask that. Like I said, we do have job seekers now who are asking for any enhancements that they can, but you have to ask that question. Even not only that, asking, like, it starts at 60, so what is the option to get a pay increase? Because they understand it and they will know. They may say, hey, after 6 months after your evaluation, we will reevaluate, or after a year. But I think you should ask those questions. So I know the salary starts at this, but what are the options for me, within 6 months? Is a pay increase of this possible? Because I think that's the only way you're going to be able to make a financial decision to take this job. Because again, we're working for our families to take care of ourselves, especially if you live in the Washington, D.C. area. It's expensive. Housing is expensive. Living is expensive in this area. And so I think you should have those conversations and ask those questions so you can make an educated decision. Is this a right fit for you?
And let me plug in another advertisement piece, because in our career chats going forward, we have a discussion with a financial professional, one of our alumni as well. And she's going to be telling about financial considerations you need to have in mind when changing jobs. And that's going to be a session in June. Very interesting. You mentioned about negotiation and how to talk to employer. And we have another session dedicated to it. We have a Smith School of Business professor. It's for an in-person session about negotiation strategies at work and how we can implement that. And a great question from the chat, as you, Dr. Joy, mentioned a couple of times about what are your transferable skills. So Camille here is asking, transitioning from federal government to private industry, suggestions for navigating that transition. But I want to amplify a little bit this question. If you, with someone like you, with all your experience at federal government, what is there enough transferable skills if someone goes from federal government to private, or from private to federal government, or those are two completely different things? You need to start federal job, first thing out of college, then maybe you get somewhere. Is that the thing? Or you really can change?
Well, no, I love that. So I think it's transferable either way. We have many people who are first time into the federal government coming from private industry. One thing is where I work, we are focused on scientific. Our main focus is transportation, so engineering and, electric cars and the new state-of-the-art technology. And so most of that skill set is coming from industry. And so we need that skill set because, again, they have the expertise in the private industry that we don't necessarily have. And so we need that because, again, we're trying to revolutionize transportation, for instance. And so then you also have, people who are in the government who then leave the federal government and go to private industry. And so it goes either way. But so it's the different industries, but it's those transferable skills. And it's the value of whatever you're doing in that industry that makes you marketable, that makes you to get those incentives. Because I prove them every day. I'm like, we're doing leave enhancements, we're doing recruitment bonuses, and now, we have options in the remote work. And so one of the things that happened, due to the pandemic that, I've been in HR for quite a while. And so when the pandemic and literally HR was functioning at, at their homes and stuff like that, and then it opened up this whole world of new talent through remote work. And so somebody whose background is recruiting, I get excited now that we can now find talent that's not in the DMV area. And so now we have remote work opportunity within the federal government, which is huge because oftentimes you have to literally be in the state that you were really working. But that just opened up a brand new market of partnerships, of correlations and new pipeline development programs that I can establish with engineering schools and STEM schools because I need those majors. I need to be creating pipeline programs into the federal government. And where I sit, I'm sitting on jobs I can't find people. I need diversity. We have a lot of initiatives that have been passed through this administration. And so it's my calling, why I do this stuff, is to make sure that I'm getting the best and the brightest talent. And we're establishing those partnerships. So through internships, through webinars, through just job fairs, or just talking about the great work that we're doing. And we need your skills. Come join this team. And so so that's how you transfer it. So it's not that you have to start, right out of school or wait till you get like further in school to do the federal government. I've had a successful career within the federal government. And it's been very rewarding. It's been very, very rewarding. And like I said, I've gotten many opportunities, the facilitation, the speaking, just the partnerships. And that is how I was able to, again, increase my expertise. And that expertise, not only what I do, has also expanded in me doing other stuff with other organizations that foster creating programs for people within the public sector.
Sure, thank you very much. And to address Camille's question, maybe a word of advice for the federal government employees who are seeking to transition to private industry.
Great question. So that one, I would say, again, just weigh your options. In terms of, again, one of the things, if you ever work for the federal government, you can always come back. And so it just ties into your benefits. So I would just say, just weigh your options. Just weigh your options in terms of your benefits and stuff like that. What is it going to be? And you can always make that move.
All right, thank you. And let me put in the chat again from our career chats submission form, very specific question, but I like it because it's very specific. Ibrahim asks, how often is that possible that recruiters actually interview just for the sake of conducting an interview, and they already have made up their mind?
Yes, that was one of the questions. So one of the things, again, and this is kind of different, like that myth, like are people actually, when we apply to a job, am I actually going to be in an interview? So I can only speak to the federal government. It may be similar to, the private sector when they have their lists. And so within the federal government, once you apply for jobs, it's reviewed, somebody reviews it to make sure you meet the qualifications, and then managers get this list. So then managers review your application and they can interview some, none, or all candidates, up to them. And so with that, I would say still apply, because you never know about the opportunity if you don't apply for the job. And so it used to be a myth that if you see a job within 5 days, oh my God, they have it tagged for somebody. Well, let me dismiss that myth. So sometimes that could be the case, but sometimes it's not. The reason why applications have cutoffs is because in one day, depending on the job, we can get 200 people in one day for like one vacancy. That's way a lot of applicants for a manager to look at. So that's why we have this cutoffs. And so we have this data that we can look at to see per jobs and what areas and what series and what grades, what is the normal application flow. And so, but if you don't apply, you won't even be considered. And I do tell my clients, if you are really looking for a job, your minimum looking for a job is with the job itself. You should be, after your resumes together, after you know what area you're looking at, what kind of skills, and you narrow down kind of, this is the job I'm looking for in these areas, you should be applying to at least 5 to 10 jobs a day, because there are jobs out here. And so I literally have a girlfriend, and I'll be like, just on average, how many jobs do you actually apply for? And she said, Joy, about 20 a week. Because yes, but the more you increase your chances and to apply, is the more likely you are to be referred to a manager, which is the more likely to be interviewed and to get one yes. You may have many no's, but you only need one yes to get a job. But if you don't apply because you don't think it's a stake for somebody, or they already have their mind made up, you're going to lose out because you didn't even apply. You didn't even shoot your shot. apply. It doesn't cost you anything but your time and energy, but you only need one yes.
I want you to say that once again. How many jobs you say a day to get an interview?
I was like between 5 and 10, in a week, a good 20. Trust me, before I got this job and I was looking, I had my little spreadsheet and I would just apply, especially now, you can set up filters for your jobs based on your interests. You can get them to your email, Indeed is great. You can apply to jobs on your phone. I literally can apply for, because again, I know my area, so I'm only looking for HR jobs in operations. That's my background. So I'm not applying for all this over the sun. I'm very strategic in what I'm applying for. And so you can apply for a couple of jobs in like minutes. How you can do a post on, as we are perusing through Instagram and TikTok, you could be applying for jobs that fast. Mhm.
And again, let me just mention that we also have one of those career resources, which is called Terrapins Connect, is a platform where we have few thousands alumni and students who post jobs, who search for a job, and every job every position advertised goes with the link to a specific profile, so you can start a conversation with your fellow Terp. And that's Terrapins Connect, which you can find at alumni.umd.edu. Did we have any other questions before we start promoting our next session? Even more exciting because that's going to be in person.
Yep. Any more questions?
Hi. So, I do have one quick question. Thank you for answering the previous question. So I wanted to know, you mentioned 20, 30 jobs a week. I'm currently in the process of applying for jobs and sometimes find it a bit harder than just a couple of minutes to apply for some specific jobs actually that need a lot of documentations, customizations to your cover letter and everything, specifically with the cover letter for the jobs that I want to be prepared for. And yeah, those in terms of the ones that make it an optional, make it sending the cover letter optional. I was wondering if you would advise to not include the cover letter for those. It would increase your chances a lot by increasing the number of applications for sure. But I'm wondering if it decreases the chance of our applications getting viewed in the first place.
Okay, so a couple of things. So one, once you know your area, and when I say your area, your occupation. So oftentimes a lot of my clients, they're trying to figure out, how do I even search for jobs? So one of the things is what I offer my clients is we walk through, after we get your resume together, we walk through some job search strategies. Because now you got LinkedIn, you got Indeed, you got Glassdoor, you got so many, you got Handshake, you got USA Jobs. And so a lot of these are all filtering and stuff like that. But there is a strategy to applying for jobs and even understanding how to do all your filters. But once you kind of know your area, then your job search is a little easier because you've already identified, this is my area. This is my swim lane. This is what I'm good at. Here are series. So because I've done HR for so long, and again, I was the one when on the federal side, posting jobs for applicants and agencies. So I was the one who was looking at resumes saying qualified, not qualified, qualified, not qualified. So it's easier for me. So that's why I do these sessions. So I can literally take your resume. If you were my client, we can sit there and talk. And I'll literally be able to take from your education to what you're good at and map you what jobs you would be good at. And this is your lane. Stay within your lane. If this is what we agree upon, these are areas. Once you have that, your resume is set. Because that's the question. But do I switch my resume all around multiple times? Well, no, because you know your area, you know your expertise. We should be strategically strategizing and applying to jobs in our area. Therefore, my resume doesn't need to change. Now, the cover letter is something that I know the private sector asks for and the federal government is optional. But again, there is a key to a cover letter. It is not a regurgitation of your resume. I work with, again, clients on their cover letters. I'm like, no, it's a high level. And so your cover letter can be tweaked, but it should really only be your first paragraph. And that whole sentence about, I'm interested in this, I found, that. But your main couple of paragraphs is about what skills you have, what do you offer in this job, and it closes my resume. So in your cover letter, it should be concise, to the point, and only 3-4 paragraphs, which you shouldn't have to change all the time. So that is why I can say, once you have this together, applying for jobs is easier than it is than you do now, because somebody's helping you walk through that strategy. But if you're on your own, yeah, you're just trying to figure it out. You're just switching all the time and stuff like that. But again, it's something that, again, you should have. You should update your cover letter. You should update your LinkedIn profile. Again, it should speak to your skill sets, because again, now with social media, people are reaching out to you or interested in you for your skill set. And I'm going to flip to my slide because you guys can see how to contact me, because one of the things is I am on the TERP Connect. I have helped many TERP alums with their resume, but I do offer a free coaching consultation, 15 minutes, that you can say, hey, I have a question and stuff like that. And as part of, being alum, I do offer discounts for anybody who comes to the TERP Connection. So I want to put this out there so you can find me, and then I'll be back, I think, next month to do it all again in person.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Shall we take one more question? I think we have 5 more minutes.
Okay.
And Zainab here in the chat asks, is it better to use a functional resume instead of chronological one if you have had a gap in employment?
Great question. Yes, that was one of the questions I wanted to answer. So again, it all depends. So one of the things is, again, if you have a gap, and we understand people have gaps, what are you doing within the gap? I think is the question that you're going to need to be able to address in an interview. But if you do have gaps, you may want to focus on a functional resume more than a chronological one. So your functional resume would spell out all your key areas. So your consulting, your project management, and your program management, your customer service, your communication. And so depending on that may be better suited. Again, if you do have a gap, if they ask you about it, your question could be, you were being an entrepreneur, you were working on another degree, and you could be able to speak to the betterment of what you were doing, or maybe to speak to that. So I think that's helpful, again, in terms of you have gaps.
All right, and then let's close the loop with all the questions we received here on the chat. Oh, Omid, did you want to ask online?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you, Dr. Brown, for your presentation. Well, I have a question about the career planning for someone who is new to the US market. For example, in my case, I have several years of experience outside the US market, and I've created a stable base for me overseas. But recently that I have moved to the US, I have to redo this whole process. My question is, how would the career planning this process will be different for me compared to someone who has local experience? Is there some specific points that I have to do during this transition to make it a successful one?
No, I think that's a great question. So one of the things is I would look at, again, is depending on your experience that was overseas, where does that best align to? And so if you're able to connect with somebody who can help you with that, that's already in this industry, I think that will be helpful. So you don't have to spend time, okay, I got this experience. Is it government? Is it private sector? Is it military? Where's the best alignment for it? Once you determine where that alignment piece, then it's looking at those organizations and companies that are doing things that are very similar, or things that you want to get into, and then start that process of seeing what opportunities they are. So it's almost like people who are in the military, even though that you straight out of high school, you go straight to the military for all these years, you have your service, you still have transferable skills that you can apply for a job. It's kind of the same thing. So it's understanding kind of what industry and how does your skill sets align to a career for you to apply to.
Well, I wanted to say thank you to everybody and say that we will have a much more time to talk with Dr. Joy in at the alumni center on May 23. We invite you all for a breakfast and conversation, and we'll tackle much more questions. Of course, we have much more face-to-face time. I think it's important. We have this link that I put in the chat that is the entire career chat schedule, go.umd.edu/career-chats, and keep registering, keep those questions coming in. So give us some material to work off, and we're excited about this great beginning. Thank you very much, Joy.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, so if you plan to come and you know, you have your resume with you, I said, don't come empty-handed. Well, I'm there, be like, oh, quick question, can you look at this right quick? So again, make it worth your while. I'm only giving that for y'all. We're not gonna advertise that one, but yes, that's special for y'all for coming today. So
This is great.
come on,
Thank you.
can you look at it?